Hey YouTubers, time for another YouTube adventure. Hey, listen, I appreciate you all watching. I love doing these things. And I'll tell you, I get a lot of comments about some of the stories I tell. And I get some really cool stories to tell about my early days fishing with say Ray Scott and the Bluebird bus and traveling all around the country and first part of my career. I tell you, there's so many fond memories of the Bluebird bus when John Powell, Harold Sharp, the tournament director, Ray Scott, and we toured the country. We did 103 seminars from Connecticut to California in 1970, from October 1970 to October of 1971. We grew the membership in B.A.S.S from 17,500 to 67,500 in 1 year. We all got a bonus out of it, and I'm going to tell you that story real shortly. Anyway, the Bluebird bus was a great big school bus that Ray Scott got just to do seminars. And right after, say, 50 years ago, right after I'd won my big tournament in March of 1970, some 50 years ago, Ray Scott said, hey, you know, I want to put together a membership drive. I want to get a big old RV thing, and I want to travel around the country. I want to put on seminars. And Roland, you can talk about how to fish and use the depth finder. John Powell, you can talk about shallow water fishing. Harold Sharp, you be the kind of the manager, business manager, and I'll do my famous worm story. Ray Scott has a famous worm story, just funny as heck. Anyway, my job also was to carry a projector and put the screen up on the stage, and I'd have this big heavy Bell and Howell projector, weighed about 100 pounds. I could handle it then, and I'd play these tapes on catching bass down in Cuba and all these really neat films that we had. Plus, I'd do my seminar. But anyway, Ray Scott finally put this whole thing together and hired me in 1970, October 70. By this time, I'd won a couple tournaments. I had a few dollars in the bank, and I'm thinking, I wonder how this is going to impact my career. It's probably something to do with the career. But by this time, I'm really listening to Ray Scott. He's got this whole thing on tournament fishing all worked out. He's predicting the future like it's happening already. And so anyway, I'm on his bandwagon. I'm on Ray Scott's bandwagon. He says, let's do seminars. So the very first seminar we did, Harold Sharp had just quit his job, the Atlantic Coast Railroad. John Powell just quit his job with Frank Carter as a tackle rep. I had just kind of left Santee Cooper as a guide. And we're all going to Mobile, Alabama for the very first B.A.S.S seminar. We're going to get thousands of members. We rented a great big auditorium. 5 minutes before the curtain opens, we look out there and there's 30 people. And there's thousands of seats, and there's 30 people. And Harold Sharp saying, oh my God, I've quit my job. This is going to be a bust. I'm going to go ruin. I don't know what I'll do. And we're all gonna go broke. And John Powell was saying the same thing, and I was saying that Ray Scott's beside himself. So we get out there and we said, well, how come there's not many more people here? And they said, well, we didn't know anything about it. There was no really television advertisement then. There was really no radio stuff, not much, and hardly anything in the newspaper, so nobody knew about the seminar thing. So that was a real bust. So we said, well, let's do the second seminar. Let's get this Bluebird bus, this big school bus about 50 or 60 feet long, and let's travel to Texas, and let's do a big thing in Houston, Texas. We rented a great big auditorium. We advertised on the radio, did all these great things. And sure enough, about 3,500 people showed up. And when we did the membership drive about, why don't you join B.A.S.S, it's only $10. Hey, we got like 1,000 members that night. It was just an incredible, successful deal. And Ray Scott had made me a deal, personally, that when we sold each member, we would each get 25 cents. I'd get 25 cents for that member. So that night I made a couple $100. It was really a cool deal. So anyway, now we're saying, okay, the seminar thing's gonna really go. So now we have this brand new bus. It had no logos on it, and we're gonna travel to Dallas, Texas. You know, this is so funny. On that dashboard of that vehicle was a button that said, emergency only, do not push. And we had told, the guy that sold us the RV had told Harold and I that that's an illegal button. It's to dump sewage. You're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to have a dump thing like that. But it's hidden and nobody knows what it is, and that's what it is. It dumps this 50-gallon sewer tank. Well, we'd been on the road for a week, and our sewer tank was full. We had 50 gallons of toilet water. and it all green chemical. It's a stinky thing. And so Ray said, "Boy, I wish we could get rid of this somewhere, but I don't know where to dump it." But we had that emergency thing, but we didn't want to push it. So we're on Worth Avenue, the main street of Dallas, Texas. It's lunchtime. It's a hot day, probably 100 degrees. Everybody's out for lunch. All the lawyers had three-piece suits on. All the women had high heels. Everybody's dressed up. Everybody's carrying a briefcase. And we're going to make a right-hand turn. And Ray says, "I'm wondering about that button. That button just puzzles me." And we said, don't, Ray, don't push the button. Don't push the button. Whatever. He said, "I'm going to push the button." He pushes the button. Hey, folks, this is horrible. This stream of toilet water, an inch in diameter, shoots out 20 feet into the crowd. A crowd of people. I mean, these people are all dressed up with suits and they're going to lunch, and this toilet water, it's the nastiest stuff you've ever seen in your life. It's just spraying everybody. And Ray says, "Oh my God, oh, it's just terrible." And so he takes off and he goes zooming around the corner. Now, we didn't have the B.A.S.S logos on the bus at the time, and we turned the corner so fast, I guess they didn't see the license plate. The whole time, Ray said, "Oh my God, we're going to get arrested. We're going to pay thousands of dollars worth of fines. It's going to ruin B.A.S.S. We're all going to go to jail." And he is just absolutely we're all beside ourselves. We figure somebody got the license plate number. But anyway, Ray made left turns and right turns and left turns, and for about 20 minutes, he's going in circles all around Dallas trying to get out of there. By this time, after about 2 or 3 minutes, the tank had drained out. It all pumped all the stuff out, so there wasn't any more coming out. So we're just trying to get out of Dodge. We're just trying to get out of the... Anyway, that was the end of that little story. There was some really, really crazy things happening. There were a lot of benefits from the tournament trail. And actually, back then, I was winning tournaments and making money, getting memberships sold. One of the things was this Rolex watch. Everybody said, "Well, Roland, you know, what are you trying to be smart about, trying to impress everybody with this Rolex watch?" Well, this Rolex watch was one of the benefits I got 50 years ago off the traveling with Ray Scott in the Bluebird bus. We met a guy by the name of Frank Fight out of Abilene, Texas. He was a Rolex dealer. And he went to Rolex, and we were doing a big seminar there in Dallas. And he said, "We'll get you a deal with Rolex." Well, the deal was just a free watch. Man, and this wasn't this watch. It was a different one. It was a little bit lesser watch. I've since given that watch, which is 50 years old, to my son Scott. And an upgrade came available. Frank called me and said, "Listen, for a few $1,000s, you can get this much, much more expensive watch. It's used at the time." This watch I got 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, and it was already 20 years old. This watch is over 50 years old. It keeps perfect time. It's wonderful. In fact, the current sale price of this watch is $13,500. So, but I don't have hardly any money in it. So everybody says, "Well, you're just trying to impress everybody with the free." Well, it was a free watch. It was one of the ones I got off of Ray Scott. You know, Ray's just a prince of a guy. Some of the really crazy things that happened. There were some kind of bad things that happened. One of the bad things that happened, one time we were in Springdale, Arkansas, and we're getting ready for a Beaver Lake tournament. And we got down to the boat dock, and we were in the Bluebird bus, and it was John Powell, who's ex-military, and myself, I'm ex-military. This guy having a heart attack. He was struggling and couldn't half breathe, and he was falling down and going blue. And we said, "Man, we got to call the ambulance, you know, give him artificial resuscitation." So anyway, John and I worked on him. Ray helped out. Boy, we just worked on him, gave him all this. We breathed life into him as best we could, and he was halfway breathing. The paramedics came. The guy didn't make it. He died. But it was really a you know, you try to be a good Samaritan, try to help people out, and it doesn't always work. Well, anyway, that was kind of a really bleak moment. But so many really neat things happened along the tournament trail. I could just think of just so many little jokes, so many little things. We would play tricks on each other. One time we were within Homer Circle. This is so funny. And Homer had this little pet saying. And his pet saying was, he'd go, 1, 2, 3, everybody go, "Charge!" Like charge of the light brigade or some kind of thing like that. He would just be sitting there and everybody, he'd say, okay, we're going to all stand up and say charge. So we'd be sitting there and Homer would go 1, 2, 3, and everybody would stand up and go, "Charge!" And everybody in the restaurant was, yeah, that's kind of crazy. So Ray said to us, he said, "Listen, Homer's going to do his charge deal. Let's all agree that we're going to do the charge deal with Homer, because he's kind of a reserved guy and he doesn't want to make too much of a fool of himself. But when we go to charge, we won't stand up. We'll sit back down and let him go charge. just all by himself, like he's like a lunatic. So sure enough, Homer said, let's do the charge, let's do the charge, let's do the charge. So we 1, 2, 3, and he stands up and goes, charge! And everybody in the restaurant, well, threw him out of the restaurant. Oh, we had so many things that happened in the restaurant. Another thing, I'll have to write a book about this. I'm telling you, there's so many things. Ray had this washer thing that he had a rubber band on, and he'd have it in a little a little piece of coat hanger, and he'd twist the washer up 100 or 200 times. And he'd take a Bassmaster magazine. They always carried Bassmaster magazines around. He'd put a Bassmaster magazine. He'd put that little washer deal all wound up down. He'd put it on his seat. Now he'd be sitting in a nice restaurant, real nice. Everybody's eating and behaving themselves, and all of a sudden, he had raised himself up a little bit. When he'd raised himself up off that magazine, the washer would start spinning, and it would go. It would sound just like gas. It would sound like the worst gas attack you've ever heard in your life. And he'd sit back down, it would stop it. And he'd kind of look out at the restaurant. I don't know how he did this. He'd look out at the restaurant and say, oh, I'm sorry, folks. Okay. Oh, excuse me. No one, they thought it was real gas. We knew it was this washer on this little machine thing he had. And so but Ray would laugh and laugh, and everybody would say, they'd all be all indignant. They'd all say, that's the most disgusting thing. That man, he did that. That was awful. And about that time, he'd do it again. He'd raise himself up and go, and he'd say, oh, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And we'd all laugh, and he would laugh, and everybody in the restaurant would say, that is totally disgusting. That is awful. Anyway, it was this machine. Finally, when everybody's just about ready to walk out, when everybody's just totally beside themselves, and they said, we can't be in this restaurant with a man that uncouth. Ray would come out and he'd show everybody his little gas machine. He'd say, okay, folks, this was just a joke. And he'd explain himself, and it was funny. But that was Ray Scott for you. We really miss Ray's mirth and humor. He ran, as a master of ceremonies, all the classics, and he ran all the tournaments. He'd tell funny stories and do funny things. And we had so much fun with Ray. Unfortunately, Ray right now is 87 years old, and he's suffering from some dementia. And I talked to him on the phone. I talked to him just a couple months ago, and he kind of knew who I was, and we talked, and he can remember things from years gone by. But what a character. The last thing I wanted to say to Ray was all the influence he had in this industry. When we'd go to places with the Bluebird bus, we'd travel down the highway, he'd stop at a motel, and he would ask the proprietor, do you have rooms with a bathtub? With the bathtub? And they'd say, no, we don't have a bathtub. So Ray would say, oh, okay, we're out of here. It would go down the road until we found a motel or a hotel with a bathtub. Okay, we'll take the room. And so we'd all get different rooms and stuff, but I would have the privilege of sometimes see Ray and go in Ray's room and all, and Ray he'd have a routine. He had a yellow pad, legal notebook pad, one of those big long ones, yellow, and he had a ballpoint pen, and he'd sit in the bathtub, and he'd fill up with water, and he'd just sit there and doodle and draw little cartoons, and then he'll write down B.A.S.S Research Foundation, and then he'd write, and out of every single day he'd take a bath. And every single day he'd spend about 45 minutes filling up, 20, 30 pages of that yellow notebook pad. At the end of the month, say we'd been on the road a month or so, the whole entire pad would be just full of doodles and things. There'd be 1 or 2 gems of wisdom there. The B.A.S.S Research Foundation, the usage fee for the Corps of Engineer Lakes, all these big things that he got done through Congress and through presidential deals that he had all worked out. Anyway, Ray had some great ideas. He formed this industry better than anybody. And of course, I even gave him a little story about how he made a lot of the rules for the tournament, the Roland rules, because he found out how I was so successful. He would make rules to kind of keep me from being so successful. But anyway, that was Ray Scott. And Ray Scott, we're misses mirth and humor. I've really had a great time. I could continue with more and more stories on the Bluebird bus, because that's a whole big source of information and a lot of fun things that happen. So in the meantime, I'm going to be posting all these YouTubes. I post 3 times a week. I post Wednesday about 6 o'clock, and that's usually like a how-to thing. Then Friday, I do my What's Happening, Roland. This is an update for the week and just talking all about what's going on for that particular week. And then I do a Sunday post as well, and it's usually fishing. It's usually around techniques on fishing and how-to. See, my strength is a kind of a how-to format. I can explain things, explain techniques really well. I'm an old school teacher, and so that helps a lot for my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. You guys and girls are so good. I just hope you watch, and I just hope you subscribe as well. We'll see you again soon.